Hello and welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in business and in life and simplify them. And friends, sometimes we just need a little bit of a leg up when we're running our business. And a lot of you guys, I know this is true about you based on surveys we've done and reaching out, connecting with you guys directly that are on the other side of these earbuds, is that, you're creatives. You get into making and starting and launching a new business because you love the thing that you create, the art that you put out in the world, whether it's baking cupcakes or doing graphic design or planning weddings or whatever it is that you are so creatively great at. However, the problems sometimes lie in the fact that you didn't get an MBA, you never went to business school, and you're running 9 miles an hour trying to create a business that's sustainable and put some systems and processes into place, and you go, yeah, maybe later. But hey, what if maybe later is actually now? And I encourage you to take the last month of this year, the whole month, to really get your house in order. So today's topic, we are simplifying how to do just that, how to systemize your business. All right, so I had to find the most perfect person for this. And you know what? I think I have. Her name is Monique Malcolm, and she is a digital strategist and a multi-passionate creative. Plus, she's also a systems nerd who is obsessed with bringing ideas to life. She's the founder of Keep Chasing the Stars, which is a stationery and gift shop. She's also the creator of the Goal Setting Planner, the Visionary Journal, as well as Pimp Your Brilliance, a podcast and membership community for solopreneurs who want to leverage their existing knowledge by turning it into a digital product. So I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast, Monique Malcolm. Hey, Monique.
Hi, Mary. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, I always love it when I get to talk to other podcasters. First off, your audio is butter. It sounds so great. And I know that you know your stuff. So I can't wait to geek out with you on this and really talk about why systems are so darn important. So let's start there. Why do you believe it's so important, especially for a solopreneur, to have systems and processes in place and potentially a training manual?
Well, systems are everything.
Yeah.
I know it sounds like a stuffy topic, something when you hear the word systems and processes, you think so formal,
Yeah.
buttoned up, training manuals. If you've ever worked in corporate or even, fast food jobs, there's like these thick manuals full of steps, but it's really not this buttoned up topic. Systems really allow you to scale your business. Whether you are a team of one with maybe a VA, whether you're a team of several people, whether you aspire to have a huge team of hundreds of people,
Yeah.
you're going to need to have systems in your business. You can't escape it. And the longer that you put off doing it, the more that you are going to stagnate the growth of your business, because systems are what is going to allow you to have freedom. It's going to reduce some of the overwhelm. And my personal favorite thing about having systems for my business is that systems allows you to outsource. It allows you to hire and find help. And honestly, as somebody who wears a ton of hats all the time, I need as much help as I can get.
Totally.
And I need it to be stress-free.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I can't tell you how many times I've heard this over and over and over again from my clients as well, is you go into starting a business and you're like, I do all the things. I'm the janitor. I'm the director of marketing. I am the one that fulfills the orders. I am all the things, right? So why would I need a training manual? That's crazy. I do it all. It's all up here in my head. And then, so you do that. You are the whirling dervish that does all the things for the first, say, 0 to 4 years of your business. And then holy smokes, you've grown so exponentially that there's not enough hours in the day for you to physically do all the things without having some serious burnout along the way. So
Exactly.
You do have to go to hire a VA or a part-time assistant or a full-time employee, and you got nothing written down. It's just such a waste of time, money, and energy. And potentially you're hiring the wrong person because you don't actually have it documented as to what you need in skills and qualifications from that person too, right?
Exactly. And if I can tell a quick story about when I hired my very first VA. So this was probably about 4-ish years ago. And all of my friends were like, you have to hire, you need to hire a VA. It's going to be great. They're going to do things for you and you're going to free up so much time. It'll be worth the money spent. It was actually more stressful to have the VA than just to do the things myself
Oh,
because I didn't have any systems. I had some general ideas of what I thought she could do, but I was always this bottleneck. I
yeah.
would say, okay, I need you to schedule the social media tweets or whatever. And then she would have to come back and be like, great, where's the copy?
Yeah. What do you
And
want
then
to say?
exactly. So then I'd be like, oh, okay, let me get you some copy. And then she'd come back and be like, well, do you want graphics to go out with it? And I was like, oh, well, yeah, I think I need that too. So let me create some graphics for you. And
Oh,
then I gave those to her. And then she was like, well, what kind of cadence do you want this to go out? And so it was like everything was this just
yeah.
stop, stop, stop. So I was constantly having to stop and tell her the next thing I needed her to do or get her things. And it was so stressful.
Mm.
It really wasn't that stress-free relaxing on the beach freedom I thought I was going to get by hiring someone for a few hours of time.
Yeah.
It just became an annoyance and another thing that I had to do.
Ugh.
Fast forward, it was so bad. But fast forward a few years after that, once I decided, I can't do this any longer, and I started the podcast, I wrote down every single thing that I needed to do for the podcast, templates, everything.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where I could just hand over all the podcast stuff to the VA and just really, it was a matter of this is when it needs to go out. This is when I need you to have it done.
Yeah.
And then I just let her do her work. No micromanaging necessary, completely different experience. And that's why I'm all for get your systems together. When
Mm.
you don't have anybody relying on you for things, when nobody's asking for next steps, that is the perfect time to get your systems together.
It's totally true. And I mean, how many, go ahead, raise your hand now, nobody's looking, has been in that situation before? And you go, oh, well, I'll figure it out as we go along. It's like changing a tire on a race car as it's going 100 miles an hour down the track. Like it's very, very, very hard and also painful to try to run a business like that. So yes, if you have experienced that yourself or you're thinking about hiring somebody in the future, but also I think when you, as a solopreneur, when you write your systems and processes down and you start building that training manual, it really helps you determine and like, is this the best steps 1 through 20 of this task? Could I simplify it down? Could I refine it? Has new technology entered into the market to make this easier? I mean, like, 8 years ago, I was making graphics for social media using Photoshop. Now I'm using Canva in half the time, right? So, is there some truth in there? Like, even if you don't plan on or think you aren't planning on hiring anybody soon, spoiler alert, you will, you can still do this work to help you refine how you work as well, right?
Yes, exactly. So, the systems work for you just as much as they work for anyone that you were to bring on, a contractor,
Yeah.
VA, a permanent team member. You put your systems as a template into your project management system, and it's just like a checklist. So you run through that checklist from top to bottom. So let's just say you were doing, both Mary and I are podcasters. So let's just say I was doing some podcasting work. I'm going to run through whatever I have on my checklist that I can do now.
Yep.
If I have to stop, if I get interrupted for any kind of reason, once I come back, I go back to the checklist and I just see where did I stop?
Yep.
Where did I leave off?
Yeah.
And then you just pick it back up. So it's not even a thing where this is solely for someone else. This is also for you as well, just to make sure you're not missing steps. You go into your project management system, you see what's next, what's due for today, and that's the stuff that you focus on. So it's really a good way to just track projects on your own.
Agreed. And you bring up a really good point there. I think that when I have my own checklist, even if it's things that I know intuitively already that I do either daily or weekly, it's nice to have that as a quick check off. And I find actually work faster when I've got a checklist to run from rather than sort of winging it. Is that the same for you?
Yes, and I just like checking things off. So, sometimes you feel like you're just not getting anything
Yeah.
done. But then when you go back and you look in your checklist or your project management system and you see all the things you checked off, I'm just like, oh, Well,
Actually,
I did get some things done today, so this
yeah.
is great.
This is a good day. I actually did do quite a bit. Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. So I want to actually back up because I feel like there's something that you do brilliantly on your podcast and in your blog. And I really want people to be very, very, very clear. What is the difference between systems and what is the difference between processes and also tools? Can you break that down for us as well?
Yes, and this I'm a stickler on this, and I think this comes from my teaching background. I am very big on making sure I define words and I don't just assume that people know what they are.
Yes.
And sometimes in the industry people use words interchangeably,
Mm.
and I'm just like, nope, that's not what that word means.
Yeah.
That's not it at all. So I think systems and processes get used interchangeably, but they're different. Although it's I have an example that I'll explain after I tell you.
Okay.
So systems are like the overall thing. So it's your specific way or method of doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Podcast publishing, onboarding clients, getting new leads, your specific way. Inherently, because of that definition, you already have a system, whether you documented it or not. It may or may not be the most efficient system, but you have one that you're
Yes.
operating on right now.
Very clear.
So then you have processes. So processes are the individual steps. It's basically how you go from start to finish and whatever the task was. So client onboarding, whatever that is, start to finish. That's your process. And then tools. Tools complement the system. They help you complete the process. They are like software, templates. Different assets can be tools that you use to complete your system more efficiently. So I know that was like a lot of words and maybe that sounded really confusing. So the really simple example that I have is to think about a recipe.
Mm.
So if you think about a recipe, the entire recipe, that's the system. So it encompasses ingredients, it encompasses the steps. It tells you the temperature, if you're baking something, what it needs to be on. If you're baking something specific like bread, it tells you what kind of pan you need to put the bread in.
Yeah.
That's the system. So the
Yep.
system is the entire recipe.
Mm.
And then you have the process. So the processes are the steps. So how do you make this bread? You have to add the flour, you add the water, the salt, whatever it is. Those steps and in the order that you put them in, those are your processes.
Mm.
And then your tools. Your tools are the suggestions you get in the recipe. So maybe if you're baking bread, the suggestion is that you use your mixer and you attach the bread hook to it. And you use the bread pan, the loaf pan. Or if you're baking a cake, you use the cupcake tins
Yep.
instead of the round cake. So those are the
Yeah.
tools. So you put all those three pieces together and you have this overall recipe. And that's basically how systems operate.
It is so brilliant. And, sometimes we don't slow down to actually define these things. And how many times have you ever kind of heard it broken down and simplified like that, you guys? Like, it's just brilliant. Thank you, Monique. And it makes me kind of
You're
want some
welcome.
bread right now. Let's just be real. So now that you know what systems and processes are, you understand what tools are and how to systemize your business. Like, let's begin. Like, what's the first step, do you think?
Okay, so the very first step is to think about all the things that you do in your business on a day-to-day basis. So we're talking recurring tasks. Anything that you do repetitive that has same or very, very similar steps over and over again that's necessary to run your business, it needs to be systemized. If you're doing it more than one time, systemize it. So I like to just tell people to start there. Just brain dump a list of things that you have to do to get your products over to people. What do you need to get products listed on your website? If you are a client-based business, what do you need to generate new leads? What do you need to do to onboard clients? If you do digital things, again, lead generation is huge. Content creation is huge. So all of those things, think about the categories. So lead generation, content creation, client management,
Yep.
all of those buckets of things are where you're going to start brainstorming what systems you actually need for your business.
Yeah, I like that. And one thing that I do that's really, really helped me over the years is similar to that, but taking it one step in a little bit of a different direction, is imagine your business, even if it's just me, myself, and I, like imagine your business as a major corporation and thinking about the different departments departments in the organization. So you've got the finance department, you've got the sales department, you've got research and development, figuring out new products and services. You've got the marketing team, you've got the operations team, HR, and that's that one step of getting it into those buckets and breaking down the categories into sections. Because again, we just sort of lump it all in and go, well, wing and a prayer, I hope it all gets done this week, right? But then when you break it down into sections, then you can start to understand which departments are strongest in your wheelhouse that come intuitively natural to you, and which are ones you really need some help with. Maybe finance is not, your strong suit, or maybe sales is where you need to really brush up. Then it really helps you start to understand which department do you need to send in some extra help or have some more guidance or structure for as well, right?
Exactly. That's exactly right. Because your business is made up of multiple departments, just
Yeah.
like you just named. Marketing, sales, finance, those are big ones.
Yeah.
We as small businesses, especially solopreneurs, tend to shy away from the finance and doing the books. But when you get started, more than likely, you're probably not hiring that out yet. So I need you to get comfortable and come up
Yeah.
with a really simple system for handling your finances. If you're a person that's great with spreadsheets, use a spreadsheet. If you have some money to invest into something like QuickBooks or Xero, use that. There's even the Wave app that I believe is free that will help you keep track of expenses and income. But just get in the habit of doing that from the beginning, please. If you take nothing else away, please do your finances.
Yes, yes. And by the way, any tips and tools like the software she's just mentioned, we're going to link those up into the show notes. So you can find those at thesimplifierspodcast.com. Everything that we talk about today is there for you to find it easily and simply. But yes, you're absolutely right. You've got to have a bookkeeping system in place to help you track your numbers, because the statistic as it goes is in the US, 90% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. And the reason behind that, 9 out of 10 businesses fail in the first 5 years, just to say that very clearly, is because of money. They run out of cash, poor cash flow management. They extend themselves too far. They hire too much talent too quickly, or they go out and spend the money that just got deposited into their account thinking, woohoo, I'm rich, and realizing there's lots of cost of goods sold or taxes later down the line that are due. So yes, yes, yes. And we have a whole slurry of episodes specifically related to money management on the podcast. So go back into our archives. So I want to touch back on something you said a little bit earlier and really dive a little bit deeper. So you talked about recurring tasks, like understanding your recurring tasks. And I know this about you, that you have what are called like DW, M, and Q tasks. Break that down. What does that mean? And how do we document the steps out on those recurring tasks?
So DWMQ tasks, that's daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly tasks. These are things that you do basically in those intervals, whether it's every day, on a weekly basis, monthly, and then there's a handful of things that you probably need to do quarterly. So as a part of the documentation process, before we even get to DWMQ, we got to take a step back and talk about just documenting the steps of your process. So one of the things that I tell people to do, and it's probably the easiest thing for you to do, is to pretend that you're doing the task.
Yeah.
Whatever that task is, let's just say it was going to be something related to lead generation.
Yep.
You sit at your desk and you take a notepad and you write down all of the steps that go into that. You can also just do this in the process of doing a normal task. But if this is like your dedicated CEO day and you're planning how you're going to do your systems, pick a system and document all of it.
Yeah.
Something that I know kind of overwhelms people as they're going through the task is just thinking about all of the tiny steps that go into it. So I like to break this down into overarching categories. For example, with podcasting, the first step is I need to know what I'm recording. So planning an episode. And then the next thing would be recording the episode.
Yep.
And then editing the episode. Then getting the episode prepared to be uploaded. And then getting a blog post created. There's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But within each of those bigger categories, there are smaller things that have to happen. So with planning the episode, it's thinking of 3 to 5 angles that I can talk about during this episode. Or if I'm interviewing somebody, coming up with 5 to 10 questions that I can ask them. Another thing would be writing an outline for the episode, maybe even writing a script depending on what the topic was. There could be some research behind it because, again, I really like to make sure I'm defining words and using them properly.
Yeah.
So I may have to spend some time doing that. But as you see, that one category of planning the podcast actually has a number of tiny or more detailed steps in it. The
Yeah.
same thing with recording. So, making sure that I have the episode title correct, any resources that I want to mention, that I have that documented. So that goes into that, recording an intro.
Yeah.
So just taking these bigger categories, if it helps you, and just thinking about the tinier things that go into it. And then you document those out into like bullet points.
Yeah. Well, and it kind of brings me back to your brilliant bread analogy. I mean, a lot of Americans are headed to Thanksgiving, right? Later this week. You got a whole plate full of food, including the bread. That plate of food just doesn't magically appear. I mean, unless you just ordered it online. But mind you, like if you're creating that plate of food, there are different recipes and different things that you need to do. The food doesn't magically appear in your refrigerator. You have to go out and buy the raw materials in order to make that bread. So, I mean, same. It's all there. One of the things that I have done over the years that has brought like taking this into action and making it happen is every Monday we have a team meeting. And this is where you can start to not only kind of make sure your team is trained, but also get the training manual built and created, because sometimes it's like such a huge task and you're like, I'll do it later, and it never gets done. So every Monday we would take one task and we would group exercise, write out all the steps in it. And so we would set a 7-minute timer and say, okay, right, everybody, open up a Google Doc and start brain dumping what you think the steps 1 through 10 are on, posting on Instagram. What does that look like? And everybody does it 7 minutes. It keeps you focused and gets the job done. And then after that timer goes off, then we share what we've written down and put it all into one Google Doc. And so you go, oh, that's interesting. You think step 3 is this, and you think step 5 is this, and I hadn't even thought about that. And start to integrate those together. You're crowdsourcing information, basically. You're making the task not a top-down, like I create all the rules and regulations of how this business works. Most times you're wrong, or you're maybe a little outdated, and somebody's got a faster, easier, cheaper way of doing it. But then again, it shows you the gaps, like, maybe Sally doesn't understand how graphic design works when we're posting to Instagram. Maybe we need to go over more training with her. What are your thoughts on that?
No, I love doing task mapping like that, especially like you say, if you have a team, you spread that responsibility out, because over time, I mean, when you start by yourself, the systems are going to be largely tailored to you.
Yeah.
But once you bring other people in, they may find faster ways to do it. They may be proficient in things that you are not, and they can bring in their own ideas on how you can shave time off or reduce some of the steps, or even come in with better tools to help complete that process a lot faster. So I think definitely having a team, or even if it's your VA, and do some of this, especially the tasks that you're handing over to them, and get their take. Maybe they're going to say, you know what, I think these 3 steps, we don't need to do them.
Yeah.
There's a faster way to do it. Or I found this tool that can do it plus some, so we don't even need this. So definitely bringing in other people is a great practice.
Yeah, and I think also the other thing to really remember is that this is a living and breathing document. This training manual will never be done, right? And that there's some grace in that, of just like, oh, okay, well, if it's never going to be done and it's always going to be refined, then I can take it piece by piece to build it and refine it over time as well. I tend to put these things on Google Docs or a shareable cloud-based system, just so people can work on them simultaneously at the same time. Do you have any other tips there, like where to actually put the training manual and the systems and processes?
Yes. Okay. So I have built a training hub inside of my project management system.
Amazing.
And I love it. And when I show people behind the scenes, they're just like, oh, I didn't think about that. But for most of us, we're in our project management systems all the time. The majority of the systems integrate with Dropbox or Google Drive, so
Mm.
you can attach folders and you can attach files to
Yeah.
it. But what I've done is taken a step further is I'm using ClickUp currently. So I have a board that's all just training manual, and there are task cards for each of the different categories of my
Mm-hmm.
business. And each of those task cards includes a video link to an overview of me doing the actual task.
Love it.
There's links to the doc that shows all of the steps. There's links to any templates or assets that they need to complete it, and it just lives all inside of this hub. So the raw, I guess the core part of it lives in Google Drive as in a folder as individual files,
Yep.
but it's also linked into the project manager. So that way, if I bring on someone else to help with something, I can just say, hey, check the training library inside of ClickUp. There's a whole column on WordPress. There's a whole column on ConvertKit. There's a whole column on podcast stuff, or you can find font templates. Like
Mm.
you can build out a whole brand board with headshots, your logo, any specific branded fonts, like all of that stuff you can put inside of basically a brand playbook in your project management system, and you can give access to your other teammates so that they can have that on demand, and it just works fabulously.
Absolutely brilliant. And you can translate that into Trello or Asana or any project management software that you might be using out there currently. Like, it's so smart. And so, like you said, the assets themselves live in Google Drive or Dropbox, but then you can link them up into a training hub, a training library, like you say. It's so smart. And I've never actually done it that way. So I love the tip. That's so great. But also think about it, while you might not have interns on this semester, but you may have interns back again in a physical office, who knows, as early as next year. To have that, to be able to start from day one, they're going to feel more empowered. They're going to be excited because you see a business that has some real strength and structure in place for training. And that means that they can step up and into the task much, much, much quicker than being like, hey, go make some social media posts. And they're like, okay. Like they just don't have the tools necessary. It's so smart.
Yes, I think it's one of the cheat codes, especially about having a business. The other
Mm,
cheat code, template everything.
yeah.
And you don't even have to create all these templates from scratch, although you can if you want to. You can buy templates,
Mm,
graphic templates, templates for YouTube cover art,
yeah.
how you write podcast stuff, like template everything.
Mm.
Just templates and tweak them to your needs and then use them over and over again. Don't keep making things from scratch.
Yeah, and I know that you have quite a few templates on your website. So you can go to pimpyourbrilliance.com. You can find a link to her shop in our show notes as well, the simplifierspodcast.com. I think it's very smart. Again, it's making how you run your business as efficient as possible. And yes, it is the holiday season while this episode's coming out. So you probably are being pulled in multiple directions right now. But I really, really encourage you guys, wherever you are in the world, vow to take the month of December to get off the hamster wheel and start taking this bit by bit, piece by piece, and systemize your business so that you can set yourself up for success, at least hitting the ground running a little bit better come January when a new year is arising. With this pandemic, I think a lot of us, I can't help but think back of where we were all in January of 2020, creating our vision boards and setting our one-word intentions and going, this year's going to be the year. It's going to be different, right? And then getting sideswiped in March and gut punched in April, and then slowly pivoting or shuttering or changing completely in May, June, July. This is the time to really put this stuff into place, especially if you've been talking about it for months, if not years now, so that you can run a leaner, stronger, more empowered business as you go along. Is there any tips that you would share, Monique, on project management tools in particular?
So I'm not a project management tool snob.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really big on use what works for you in your brain.
Mm,
So even though I mentioned using ClickUp in the past, I've used Asana. I've tried Trello. That's probably my least favorite one.
Yeah.
But any tool, like just think about the way that you plan. I'm a very visual person, so I need to be able to see things. The
Yeah.
calendars need to be color coded and things like that. So I think lean into your strengths wherever those are. And honestly, the biggest tip I could give you about project management systems is pick a tool and commit to using it.
Yeah.
Commit to learning it. Most of these systems have some kind of training hub academy attached to them that shows video tutorials. YouTube has tons of them. Just dive fully in and don't worry about all of the fancy bells and whistles because they all have fancy bells and whistles.
Yep.
The core things is what you need to focus on. So, are you a person that wants to see it in a list? Do you want to see it in a board where you can slide cards? Do you just need a list where you can check things off? Is that enough for you? Think about those things and choose your project management system accordingly, and then commit to using it. Commit to putting together some type of routine where you go in it every day and just look to see what you have. Make sure you're giving due dates to tasks,
Yeah.
especially according to your DWM. So things that have to be done daily, create a recurring task for that. So it shows up every single day.
Yep.
Things that happen weekly, same thing, recurring task. Monthly, quarterly, I have a quarterly reminder for sales taxes because those are due, and to also audit my email list to make sure I'm cleaning out cold subscribers.
Mm.
So these are the types of things that you just set recurring tasks for so that you don't have that in your brain.
Yeah.
It's in the project management system. That's basically your second brain. It's
Mm.
your brain hub. And you just let it hold on to those tasks and you just check them off as you do them. But really the biggest thing is committing. Setting due dates, because we don't like to commit sometimes, but set your due dates
Yeah.
and then commit to going into your system and using it every single day.
Yeah, it's so smart. And I know I have a couple of clients that are listening right now that they're going to start to blush when I talk about this. Is that they feel like, oh, when you talk about this, it just makes me go, oh, this is all structure and you're boxing me into some like really rigid structure. And I don't know if I really want to fit into that. But the truth is, you sleep better at night, right? You find respite here. You find with a little bit of structure, it frees up your brain to do the creative work that you're so good at, that it is the system that helps run the whole machine. And yeah, I 100% agree. You said to me previous to this that this is where you find freedom. Tell me more about what you mean there.
Yes. So as you just said, I know as a creative person, I just don't want to be boxed in. In my mind, I just want to fly by the seat of my pants and do whatever strikes my fancy in the moment. I just want to be free to do all the things.
Yeah.
However, the lesson that I learned over and over and over again for years is that really doesn't work for me. I need structure. I need not rigid, but I need to know when I get up what needs to be done for the day
Yep.
so that I can like set my mind accordingly, get my energy where it needs to be and get going. But whenever I try to do loosey goosey and just say, you know what, I'm just going to do whatever I feel like today, nothing happens.
Mm.
No significant movement happens. So with having systems and having some structure in your business, it gives you freedom. And ultimately, you started this business because on some level, you wanted freedom. But you probably have realized very quickly your business is not giving you the freedom that you desire
Yeah.
because you have to do all of the things. You're wearing all of the hats. So, with having systems in place, you can have freedom because you can buy back your time. You can pay for someone else to do the things that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
You can be more efficient in working in the areas of your business that you actually really love. And when you see your systems and you figure out what you actually need from someone to produce the level of work that you would produce or that you want for your business, then you can hire according to that. And then you are free from that task. You can assign it to that person and they can do it. And it's probably their zone of genius and they're going to rock out and they're going to love it.
Yeah.
And you'll have more time to do whatever you want to do, whether it's laying on your couch and watching Netflix, which is what I like to do. If you want to garden, you want to read, all of that is available because you have that freedom
Yeah.
and you know that your business is not going to fall apart without you standing with like your thumb on it the whole time. So I think that even in our quest to have this freedom and not have rigid things in place, ultimately, if we want that kind of freedom, if we want to be able to do the things that we want, lay on the beach in the middle of the day, you need systems because that's what's going to allow you that freedom and really allow you to have someone take over these things so that you can have a vacation.
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's recap. So, start small in the beginning. Pick 2 or 3 tasks that you can really start to look at granularly. What's the recipe for it? What are the steps 1 through 10 to get that task accomplished? And as you say, pick the 2 or 3 tasks that make you money. Start there,
Yes.
Just like document those first. You mentioned it at the top of our conversation, but, designate a CEO day. Maybe it's just 1 hour every Friday where you go and you carve out that time in your calendar and say, this is the time I do this. Me personally, I like to do it first thing Monday morning, like when I'm rearing to go. But for some of you guys, Friday afternoons might be the perfect way to wrap up a busy week. And again, that grace of realizing it's a living and breathing document that grows and changes and evolves over time, that not only you create, but your team also has input into so that you can become more efficient. Yes. Is there any final tips in that regards that you see mistakes that people make or things that they could avoid?
So one thing is there are no perfect systems. I don't care about perfect systems. They don't need to be perfect. They
Yeah.
need to be functional.
Yep.
So beating yourself up over having the perfect system out of the gate, you don't need to worry about that.
Yep.
Just get the system together. You're going to refine it over time. It's like you said, it's a living, breathing document. It's going to change. It's dynamic. So that's the biggest thing.
Oh, I 100% agree. And it's an internal document. This is not something that's going to be published on your website. So none of your clients are going to see it. So bullet points, be concise. I love the idea of doing screen grabs using QuickTime if you're a Mac user, to do an audio recording, but watching your mouse go across your screen and say, click here, do this, this is step, or videos where you just quickly 30 seconds to a minute describing to someone, okay, here's how we do this. This is how you truly create value in your business, especially if you're a service-based business. And let's say 5 or 10 years down the line, you want to sell this business. All of a sudden, that training manual, that's your asset. Then you are not the magic secret sauce that makes the business run. They can have the playbook, as you say, to replicate your success.
Exactly. Another mistake that I see people make, blindly copying other people's systems. Don't do that. That's not to say that you can't use someone else's system as a starting point,
Yeah.
but just because Mary said the system worked for me and it was great, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So you have to be really mindful about that because you are building your business. Your systems are going to be a mashup of your lifestyle, your business model, what you ultimately want to accomplish. You need to build systems around that. So just listening to what I'm saying or what Mary's saying and saying, you know what? Monique said she uses ClickUp, and that's not the gold standard for you.
Yeah.
You have to be intentional about making sure that you are setting up systems that work for your life, your business model, what you ultimately want. That's a really big one. Because you can waste a lot of money that way just buying tools without having a real understanding of how it fits into your whole ecosystem and your system. So make sure that you document the system first and then you find the tools later.
So smart, because we all have been victim of shiny, bright objects and thinking, oh, this is the silver bullet that will make my life easier, better, less stressful, all the things. Yes, define the system first, as Monique says, then create the processes and understand what are the tools that you have or you may need to go out and find. Brilliant, 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 which is why your podcast is called PimpYourBrilliance.com. So you guys go listen to the podcast, go check out our website. She's got a whole slew of fantastic blog posts and a membership community as well, specifically for solopreneurs who want to leverage their existing knowledge by turning it into a digital product. So again, you can go there to PimpYourBrilliance.com. So Monique, I've got a few questions as we wrap up that I like to ask everybody. And again, thank you so much for your time today. First one is, tell us what's one book or blog that you're reading these days that's either inspiring you or poking holes and challenging your belief system.
So I've been reading, or actually I'm listening to the audio version of The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks.
Yes.
It came recommended by a friend, and it's one of those books that I think really challenges your belief system, which I think as entrepreneurs is very important.
Yes.
You always want to have, you're always doing that mindset work on limiting beliefs, but he's just talking about how do you shift yourself from where you are right now to ultimately where you're supposed to be. Like, how do you get out of your own way to live your best, brightest, happiest life? Not just financially, but just in life, period.
Brilliant. Yes, we'll link that up in the show notes for people if you guys want to check that out. So tell us, who's one person in your network that you just feel is up to brilliant things? We could shine a spotlight on them, and who knows, maybe one day we'll have them on the podcast as well.
Definitely my friend Alicia Nicole. So she is the founder of the Living Over Existing podcast, and she also has the Living Over Existing community. So she's all about building a business with intention and not the hustle. And she is super brilliant and just really, I think, one of those shining lights on the internet that's we're looking for more of. So definitely she'd be somebody I would check out.
I love it when I get recommended a podcaster. It's the best thing ever. We'll link up with Alicia as well and put her in the show notes so you guys can check her out. So I believe gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Tell me, what's one thing you're grateful for today, as in right now?
A nice house. Sometimes, having a nice, safe place to stay, you take that for granted because it's just, you just wake up here every day. But I think I just bought a house about like a month and a half ago. So waking up here every day just feels like, wow,
Yeah.
this is amazing. So a safe place to live.
So great. Is there one place in particular on social media where people can reach you, where you hang out the most?
The most is Twitter.
Okay.
Twitter. So I'm not Pimp Your Brilliance on Twitter. The name is too long.
Yeah.
But I'm Star Chasers only on Twitter. I'm there all the time.
Brilliant. We'll link up all of your social media handles in the show notes as well. So my final question for you is this, Monique. And again, thank you so much for your time today. Someone somewhere is listening to this right now and she's inspired. She's like, you know what? Maybe I will take the challenge and maybe I will focus the last month of this year on really systemizing my business. But she's looking at it and going, I don't even know where to begin. Like, this is a lot and it's nothing all at the same time. What's one thing you could whisper into her ear right now just to encourage her in this moment?
Ooh, so I'm going to tell her, don't let fear have all the fun. Like everything that you want is on the other side of just that scary feeling, that overwhelming feeling. So don't let that fear rob you of what could potentially be the thing that's going to help you get to the next level of your business.
Yeah, just do it. Do your thing.
Just do it.
Monique, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It was such a great time.